Welcome to the Productivity Podcast. We're joined today by Chris Noble, Managing Director at Storeforce. Hi, Chris.
Hi there, Simon. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Very good. Yourself?
Good. Yeah, all good. Thanks. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yep. No, it'll be a good one today, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So for those people that don't know you, Chris, it'd be good to give a bit of personal background first, and then we'll find out a bit more about Storeforce.
Sure. Yeah. So I started in retail when I was 19. So that would have been, I think, 1999 thereabouts. And I didn't connect this until about 10 years later, but it's very interesting to see people's journeys into retail. It's one of these industries that is one of the largest employers in the world, and you can't really go to school to become a retailer, right? People kind of fall into the industry. They find themselves working in a store. They enjoy it. They enjoy the buzz, how dynamic the industry is, and you kind of stay. And the really talented people kind of make their way up through store management, area management, into head office, into various roles. Looking back at my start in retail, it only occurred to me probably about 10 years after getting into the industry that my parents were both retailers. So I grew up in stores. They were managing 3 retail stores when I was a kid. So I kind of was very familiar with all of the nuances and the challenges that come with retail, the long hours, all of the challenges that they faced with employees, with open hours, with being called out at all hours. So it's kind of been in my blood since I was a kid, I would say. And in 1999, I started with a technology company that was trying to solve some of the many challenges that retail had. I helped build that business up. And then in 2010, started Storeforce with my colleagues in North America.
Falling into retail, that's how I describe it. Yeah, nobody sits down with a career advisor at college or school and goes, I want to work in a shop.
Right.
I think there's quite a bad impression of that, or it's not seemed to be pushing yourself. You know, if you look at it, actually, we're a nation of shopkeepers, and I think that's a great thing. There's some amazing stuff that happens there. Yeah, but like you, I fell into it. I never planned it. Started working in DIY on a till on a Saturday, Sunday. Did all right. Got on the management training program. Progressed up. College, it was about uni and that stuff. Nobody said I'm going to work in a shop.
Yeah, and once you started it, you realize you kind of enjoy it. It's if you're the kind of person that prefers working in an environment with people that changes all the time, it's not an office environment that's kind of very similar each day. It's an interesting, fun environment to work in, and you either love it or hate it, and the people that love it stay and do very well. But what's interesting about it, and this is what's interesting about the role of technology, is the people that have historically done well have done well through their intuition and their instincts on how to operate their store. And largely for a long time, stores were kind of run on the intuition of their leaders. And I think the role of technology has evolved in the time I've been working in retail to provide store managers, store staff with tools that help them do the stuff that computers are just very good at automatically, and giving them more time to focus on delivering the things that are really important for the brand, which is a consistently brilliant customer experience. And that's really what my focus is about. And in fact, what everybody at Storeforce is passionate about. So everyone in our business comes from retail. They've all had very varied and interesting backgrounds in specialty retail, and that's our niche. That's the market in which we work in. So, some of our customers are people like Doc Martens, Estee Lauder, Tommy Hilfiger, Calvin Klein. Anyone where there's a medium to high level of service is really our kind of central target market.
And you help them with staff scheduling and all the surrounding bits that make that employee ecosystem?
Exactly, yeah. The biggest variable in any retailer's customer experience is the interaction with the staff. And what retailers want is a consistently great customer experience, right? The consumers can shop now on any channels: mobile, e-commerce, in-store, click and collect. You can convenience is the name of the game, but the experience in the store is when your customer experiences your brand personality. And the key with getting that executed well, the key with having customers have a brilliant experience is your staff. It's the personality that they bring. And so there's a lot to workforce management. It's not just about getting the schedule right, mapped to traffic. That's the very basics of it. It's about how you use the data that you have. And retailers are not short of data. They are absolutely swimming in data now. It's how you use that data to improve the quality of the conversations that a sales floor manager or a store manager will have with their team, train them, to coach them, to deliver the experience that the brand is expecting. And if you provide insights to the store teams at the right times with relevant data, they're able to have those conversations in the moment to drive effective change in every interaction they have with their customers. And doing that well leads to huge improvements in store performance. And that's what we're passionate about. We do workforce management to help brick and mortar retail thrive. And there's been a lot of talk in the press about the retail apocalypse over the last 10 years. And there are trends that have been accelerated by COVID, but retail isn't going to go away. It's part of our DNA. It's what we love doing as people. We love going to shops and buying things. It's something that feels good, that people enjoy, and that's going to continue. The question is, which are the retailers that are going to thrive and survive, or which are the retailers that are going to thrive through this period? And it's the ones that invest in technology. It's the ones that invest in tools that give their stores the ability to manage effectively. So that's what we're passionate about, is driving the performance in the store and helping the store managers understand their teams so they can coach and improve the customer experience.
Excellent. So let's talk about then the state of retail. There's been some trends, I think, that COVID has accelerated, and back to the earlier point around running shops and being a retailer. I think running a shop is relatively simple, having done it, and that's not, it probably sounds a bit self-serving, but I didn't find it difficult, because actually when you start to boil it down to its component parts, do you treat your people well? And have you recruited the right people? And if you haven't, how do you deal with the ones that aren't performing? Because I think that's a big challenge in retail, is dealing with poor performers at a store level. Have you got the right inventory counts? Have you got stock on the shelves? And actually, have you got the right people in the right place? For me, it's relatively simple, and I'm always surprised how spectacularly wrong people get running a shop, because there's a load of stuff you can't influence. So as a store manager, I can't particularly, in my world, I couldn't particularly influence the type of stock I sold. So it was ranged and it was sent in. I could influence how much to a degree if it wasn't allocated. I couldn't particularly influence price or promotion. That was a given, and you were told where to put it. So when you start to think about the things you can influence, it's mainly around your people, the presentation of the store. The rest is a given in terms of promotional planning, all that kind of stuff, that I think lots of people spend in stores a lot of time challenging and energy on, when the reality is, if the company's made a decision that, I don't know, let's use a DIY example, Santex masonry paints on promotion, and it's the first end you should see that it walks in the store, and it was $20.99 and it's now $15.99, you've just got to do that. So actually getting that done helps you focus on the stuff you can influence. I don't know what you see when you go in shops, and certainly now in the new world, but I'm always surprised that more people seem to get it wrong than right, at a local store level, that is.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Retail at its heart is a very simple business. The 4 Ps are still very relevant, although place is probably less relevant than it once was, given that people have so much more choice about where they shop. So the product and the price are always going to be the most important aspects of a retailer's offering, but the in-store experience now is more important than ever. The days of people going to a mall or walking down the high street and popping into every shop and trying everything out are gone. That used to be a pastime. People now go to stores with an intention, much more so now, obviously, in the COVID times. But in general, that was the trend anyway. People are going to the store to experience the brand, to have an experience. And you see this, the bookshops did it very early on with putting coffee shops in the bookshops. They were all trying various things to get engagement and get the experience improved in the stores. So the retailers that we work with, which are specialty retailers, are all focused on that experience. And the thing that you can control when you're managing or working in a store is the interaction that you have with the customers. And the 2 KPIs that are the ones that the store own are conversion and UPT. Right? You can influence who is converted through a whole number of things. Being greeted within the first 30 seconds is a key to conversion. If people don't feel welcome, they're likely to spend a lot less time in the store, which means you're less likely to convert them. And if you're not asking great questions and influencing the conversation, then you're going to have a lower UPT. So, finding out what people are looking for, offering suggestions, providing other items, all of those things are the ways to drive the basket size. So those are the two KPIs to look at how you're performing in the store with each interaction. And the really interesting thing, and I often ask new customers this when we get their data for the first time, is how important do you think your salespeople are in the equation? And you get some really interesting answers. Occasionally you get someone saying, well, I think a great salesperson would probably sell 60, 70% more than someone who's new. But the average would be, maybe 20% difference. And actually, when we show retailers their own data for the first time and they start to see, wow, there are some people in our store who are just superstars, who are brilliant, it's often the first time they've seen that. And I think that's kind of a bit of an eye-opener for many retailers to see just how influential some people are in the store in driving conversion in UPT. And of course, the question that then begs is, how do we emulate those behaviors and train the rest of our teams to be as brilliant as those superstars that we have? And that's the goal, right? If you think about what retailers are wanting when a customer walks into the store, they want them to have a great time every single time. And if sometimes they're not, look into why. And often it will be around things like, if stores are being asked to do a lot of tasks and their eye is gone from the customer for a few minutes, there will be customers entering that won't get greeted. Well, what happens to conversion at those times? You can see it in real time these days, so you can see the influence that your staff have. So providing data in a really simple, easy to understand way that lets everybody in the store know what the goal is in terms of the customer experience and how you're measuring that. That's how you can start to manage the conversations with staff that are going to improve the skills to drive conversion and UPT. So, price and product definitely still the most important, but you can still fail in that, 70% of it's probably price, promotion, place. 30% of it is the customer experience. But if you get that customer experience piece wrong, you spent an awful lot of time and money getting those customers into the store. Falling at the last hurdle is really a crying shame at that point. And it's something that you can control and you can manage with the right data given to the right people at the right time.
And have you seen any particular trends that COVID have accelerated across your client base or people you know in the industry?
If you look at retail as a whole, I think the days of seeing retailers in the UK that have 700 stores are gone. I think people, those kind of big retailers who have been focused on price rather than service, are right-sizing their estates. And we're seeing this across the world, actually. So in North America in particular, there's a big movement. I saw an article the other day that 25% of the malls will be closed in North America in the next 10 years. So retailers are right-sizing their estates if they're large enough to have that kind of over-subscription or very high density of stores. So you'll see that, and we've seen retailers in the UK doing the same thing, announcing store closures. You can, this is a number that's 10 years old, but you can service 80% of the UK population with less than 80 stores. I think for the very large retailers, if you think of people like Clark Shoes that had a store in every single town, you're likely to see retailers like that reduce their footprint. And we're seeing that already, although obviously if they're tied into leases, that will be somewhat of a longer process. And you'll probably see some more retailers going into CVA to perhaps exit some of those leases. So that's one of the trends that I think is being accelerated by COVID. The other trend, of course, is new entrants to the market who think about retail differently. Right? It's fascinating. We work with a few now, and we're seeing that the way they think about retail is really fascinating, and we're trying to bring some of that learning and knowledge to our traditional brick and mortar retailers. But in a digitally native retailer, they've kind of connected the e-com and store channels. They don't see them as separate channels. They don't compete. And in traditional brick and mortar, like if you go into almost any traditional brick and mortar retail store and ask them how their online business is doing, the people on the shop floor, the store managers, often won't know. They're not given insights to that. And actually, there's a symbiotic relationship between the two. Right? If a digitally native retailer opens a store in a new location, it drives their online business by between 30 and 70%. The same is true of traditional brick and mortar retailers. If you open up in a new territory, your online business will go up by a similar amount. So they influence each other. Customers in that new area feel confident to be able to return things to store, to go in and talk to people if they want to. But in brick and mortar, it's still seen as sometimes as a threat. It's still seen as the competition. And digitally native retailers understand that actually the store is there to deliver a great experience. And they don't really mind if the customer chooses to shop online after a store visit or in the store at the time. And traditional brick and mortar retailers they're very rarely going to encourage you to go and shop online because they don't have the KPIs and the tools in place to recognize the store's contribution to that online sale. So there are some trends that we're seeing around retailers that have invested in technology, that have invested in their e-com channels and got all of the kind of the back end IT pieces of the integration right. We're seeing those retailers thrive. And if you look at people like Doc Martens, who've been investing heavily in technology and stores and their e-com channels, their results of late have been fantastic. And I think that's one of the key trends, is that we see retailers that are investing and continuing to try and be at the forefront of what's available for retailer thriving. And those that have kind of got the traditional model of stack it high, sell it cheap are struggling. And that's often the case at times like this. Is you see when there's a big shift in the market, you're seeing the retailers that have invested having the best results. There's been some other trends. If you look at just traffic patterns and things like that, like it's fascinating to see what's happened. And it's across virtually all of our customers. When we did our analysis, weekend traffic is down, midweek traffic is significantly up. The weekends are still the busiest, but less so versus last year. And there'll be a whole load of reasons for that. People working from home and able to go shopping in the week more easily, perhaps customers wanting to try and go to the stores at quiet times so they're either not queuing or not exposing themselves to a huge amount of people. But those kind of trends, whilst they're temporary, they are trends that you need to adapt to very quickly. If you're asking the store staff to all interpret that data themselves and to make decisions based on what they're seeing from their traffic count data or from sales versus last year, they're going to spend a lot of time doing work that a computer system can do far more efficiently. Yeah, what are the trends that you've seen that interest you since COVID?
Yeah, I think there's been a real shift, and we've talked about it on a few podcasts, of people getting stuff done. They've managed to, spin up websites or home delivery or collections or partnerships with Just Eat, Deliveroo, whatever it might be, to service the client base in a different way, the customer base in a different way. And for me, I find that really interesting, that things that have been on people's agendas for years and years have been in the too difficult, too expensive, can't get it signed off, can't get the budget, has just happened. And again, we talked about it on a couple of podcasts. It's like agile development. If you take that approach, that tech approach of sprints, agile methodology into retail, you've got to be prepared to fail on some things, and you've got to be prepared that not everything's going to land right first time. But I think actually the competitive edge it gives you, the flexibility it gives you, forward-thinking way the company evolves into not a blame culture, into a getting stuff done quickly, getting the stuff out of the way that doesn't work or didn't work, and focusing on the stuff that does, I think is a great way of working. I think it's a challenging way of working and a very different way of working than lots are used to. Retail is your typical waterfall of, we'll get a project, we'll work out the ROI, we'll speak to some software suppliers, we'll then have to go to the board and get the budget and X, Y, and Z. So it's still very waterfall. The agile way has different challenges, as all methodologies do, but gets you to the place of understanding if it works a hell of a lot quicker. And I've worked in retail like you. I've worked in retailers where they've probably burnt millions discussing it around the table in head office and proofs of concept, desktop pilots, and all the good stuff. The real learning only ever comes when you get it in a store and people go, yeah, well, that's all great, but you didn't think about any of this stuff.
Right.
So for me, that's a real positive. That's the biggest trend I've seen, is people just being able to get stuff done a lot quicker.
Our kind of go-to-market strategy from day one was that this needs to be a very quick deployment. So our deployments range, typically from 8 to 12 weeks. And when we go and talk to retailers who are or have been looking in the marketplace for a workforce management tool, they often say to us, well, how do you do that so quickly? Because we've been told it's 12 to 18 months. And that's always been amazing to us, that you can kind of make a project 18 months long, because by the time you've deployed a solution that you've chosen 18 months later, your needs will have changed. So being dynamic and being able to do things quickly has always been at the heart of what we do. I think the quickest we've deployed is 3 to 4 weeks. We're a little bit too busy to be that dynamic right now, but we're still hitting the 8 to 12 week mark from the point of decision to go live, and that's really crucial. And I think what to your point, what we've seen is retailers kind of understand the importance of that through this stage, and you've touched on some of the things, the Deliveroo, the curbside pickups, all of those reactions have been great to see. Lush were very early. One of our clients were very early to open their stores up for hand washing early on, which was a great public service and a great way to get customers into the store who may not have been into a Lush store before. So it's exciting to see things be more dynamic, and I do, like you, hope that remains past this. But I think if you look at the trend over the last 20 years of e-com percentages for various businesses, at the start of this, people were very, I think the target was 40, 50% of revenue they'd like to see on e-com. There's very few retailers that have achieved that, but I think over the next 2 to 3 years, we're probably going to see many at that level. The acceleration of all of the technologies and integrations between the store and e-com channels are going to be accelerated over the next few years to help facilitate that and to kind of connect everything so it feels very connected from a customer perspective. And it's one of the things there are a few stores that I shop at, and you can tell when they've not got the integration right. So if I do a click and collect order, I'm typically going out of the office at lunchtime to go and pick that up. And you can tell if you're going to a retailer that hasn't got that right when you walk into a store and you say, "Hi, I'm here to pick up a click and collect item." And there's a little deflation. They sigh and they're like, "Oh, okay, let me go and get that for you," because it's their busy time, right? They're busy at lunchtime. And if you get that reaction from a store staff, number one, it's not great for me. I feel like I've just interrupted their day, and I feel bad for coming in and picking up my product at a time which is clearly inconvenient for them. But the reason they'll be having that reaction is they're probably not getting the credit on their KPIs for that sale. They're not being given recognition for the contribution that they're making, which is serving me. And I'll often go into the changing room and try things on, and that often will get a second sigh and, "Oh dear, well, okay." And at the end of the day, they know they're not getting recognized for any of this data. And that those are the simple things that if you get wrong, the customers pick up on, and it frustrates stores. And the digitally native retailers solve all that from the start, because the store do get recognized for not just click and collect sales, but sales that happen online within the store's geographic area, even if the customer's never been into the store. So their goal is to build the business on all channels. How do we get our brick and mortar customers buying more online, and how do we get our online customers buying in store? And this is one of the things I think we'll start to see lots more of. And events is one of the ways that retailers are looking to drive more traffic into the store. So, makeup brands will often have influencers coming into the store to do showcases. That will drive online only customers into your brick and mortar stores. People like DMs do gigs in store. Again, that will drive customers that may not have been to a store into your brick and mortar store. But from a store's perspective, how do you quantify how successful you're being? Well, right now, many brick and mortar retailers just look at in terms of the store staff, they just see their sales in store. But if I'm a makeup brand that's had an influencer into the store, sure, I'm going to have a bump in sales the evening or the day that influencer is in the store. But there's also going to be a bump on sales online when those customers that were in the store but didn't buy go and shop online. And our view is you should report that data to the stores so they're passionate about not caring where you buy, just that you've had a great experience and you've chosen to buy with the brand. So those kind of changes, I think, are going to start to accelerate in the next few years as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. If you can target people outside of the bricks and mortar and make them think about the company, because at the end of the day, if I retailer Y and people are spending in the store, brilliant. Actually, if we're not engaging the teams to say, "Oh yeah, but actually, I see you've bought this, and most people bought X, Y, and Z. We don't actually stock that. We can get it delivered to your house in 2 or 3 days, whatever it is." The company benefits, and then clearly you benefit. And in a world we're going to live in for the next 12, 18 months, where I think, like you talked about, there'll be lots of CVAs, there'll be lots of worse things for retailers. We've seen some go already. There will be more to go. It's going to be a fact. Unemployment will rise, unfortunately. Why wouldn't you be doing everything at a total level to get that money in the till, whether it's a virtual till or not? And I think your point about kind of picking up your deliveries, that for me is a classic example where a company thinks they're omni-channel, but they're still multi-channel and potentially siloed.
Yeah, exactly.
And we do lots of work with retailers and some more at the moment around that click and collect journey. And it comes back to, when we do the measurement and come back with the kind of anecdotals, it always comes back to two things. One, when you set up your retrieval system, it was probably, a spare fitting room if it's fashion, or a little cupboard or a locker you put in the warehouse. So your walk time is immense. So we've timed retrievals at 5-6 minutes per customer, which is a long time to stand and wait at the till.
Absolutely.
And then when you get there, the way you've stored it, dependent on your product mix. So if you're one of those multi-product retailers that does something that's in I use DIY again as an example. So if you go from screws and nails to tins of paint to garden tables, that's a real challenge, how you store that in a way that the colleague can walk in and go, it's order for Hedo, that'll be under H in the rack. Or actually, if it's an oversized item, I know on the order, because it's got an asterisk next to it, it'll be in the oversized goods bay. The amount of time we see people then, when they get to wherever the retrieval system is, trying to find the parcel or the packet or whatever it is, box, it is immense. And it's because I think people have put it in. Yeah, we've got a retrieval bay. Yeah, we've got collection. Fine. The volume's grown, and has then grown exponentially. And they've never gone back and said, is there a better way of moving some stuff so it's behind the checkouts? Of people have tried collection lockers. It's starting to become a bigger thing, especially in pharmacy world.
Yeah.
There's almost a second, even third generation, I think, that will happen relatively quickly, of people sacrificing store space to make it easier to collect the online stuff.
The fascinating thing with the way we analyze data and present data to our customers, and just to take the example you've just given of it being 4 or 5 minutes to go and collect an item, what you'll see in the store is you'll see some employees, some sales assistants, who will understand that that's a flaw in the system and feel bad about it from the customer's perspective. And the key is that they have empathy for the customer and they understand what the business objectives are. So what you will see in store is you'll see some employees saying to the customer, this is going to take me 4 or 5 minutes. Is there anything else you need while you're here? Let me take you there so you can have a look at that, and I'll come and find you. And what you'll find when employees like that, who are dynamic, who intuitively understand that they can use the customer's time better to not only give them a better experience, but also upsell at the same time, you'll see conversion and UPT rise when those people are working. So you have these systematic challenges that are there, and where things are stacked and where things are packed for retrieval is something that the store just has to deal with unless it's solved by head office. But there are behaviors that the store will exhibit, or certain employees in the store will exhibit, that will drive performance. And if you highlight what happens when those people are working and show the store managers the performance of those individuals, they'll identify those trends and then go, right, I've now got a plan. Let's train everybody to do that same thing that this associate was just doing. So there's behavioral things that you will see throughout the day and by employee that will kind of give you insights and areas for which you can go and focus to drive improvements, even when there are challenges. And that's the behavioral piece that we're really excited and passionate about helping retailers influence.
It's classic, and you learn it quite quickly in stores, that once it gets to a store level, people become creative in finding ways around the problem.
Exactly.
Because they take time to fix it. Yeah, it's a great example of keeping that advocacy, keeping the customer engaged in the, I'm doing my best for you, actually. I don't want you to stand here and twiddle your thumbs. There's an opportunity to go and have a look at our new range, new season, whatever it might be.
Correct.
So with that in mind, then, the role of the workforce are going to be really, really critical in terms of, as I said before, I think that the unemployment market is going to be really tough. So jobs in retail are going to be precious. So how do you think people are going to retain top talent? The market might do some of that, as in there's less jobs for people to go to. But if I'm, again, retailer X, how would you think people are starting to think about retaining the top talent and driving that kind of brand ambassadors way of thinking and working?
I think we're already seeing, actually, through what customers are asking for and looking for in the market in terms of tools, that they are understanding that retaining top talent is more important now than ever. Our USP is the sales uplift that our customers see when they start using the tool. And that's obviously important. But what we're hearing more in the marketplace now is we want tools that are going to engage our employees better, that are going to make them feel part of the brand and make us be able to communicate with them. And learning and development tools, task management tools, all of those kind of softer tools that don't have a direct sales improvement are the things that retailers are looking for now. And I think they're looking for that because they are looking to engage their staff better. So we're already seeing and hearing that retailers are focusing much more on that employee engagement piece. And I think ultimately this is a good thing for both retailers and for people working in retail. 5 or 10 years from now, I think the high street will look slightly different. The retailers that will be on our high streets and in our malls then are going to be stronger and better. They're going to have solved all of the technical challenges that many are struggling with now, and their staff are going to they're going to be retaining their top staff. If you look at our customer base, they are high service retailers, and for people like Hackett or Suit Supply or Doc Martens or Lush, when you walk into one of their stores, their staff are all really passionate about their brand. And if you go into other retailers who are kind of commodity or price focused, there's a different energy in the store. For them, it's you're probably hiring people closer to minimum wage. You're maybe not investing in them in the ways that specialty retailers might. Those are the retailers that are going to struggle, because the customer expectation now is that when they walk into the store, they have a consistently good experience. People don't remember a good technological experience, but they do remember a good human interaction. And what I want when I walk into a store is to have a great time and to meet people who are passionate and knowledgeable about the product that I'm looking at, who will make me feel welcome, who are attentive, who are looking for buying signals, who are there when I need them. That is something that's rarer than you would think, I would say, in retail. You can go into the same store 5 different times in a week and get a vastly different experience on each time, still to this day. And the way you solve that problem is through having great staff, retaining them, training them really well. The cost of replacing staff, if you have a high staff turnover, is huge, not only in recruitment and training costs, but in lost sales because they're not delivering the experience that you want. So I predict, and I think a few years from now, we will see higher wages for people in particularly in specialty retail. I think you'll see people staying longer, climbing up through the ranks, being rewarded and recognized for their contribution. Because, and whilst there will be fewer stores, so fewer retail jobs, those jobs will be better paid.
Much more of a focus on retention. I think it's going to be a buyer's market.
Yeah,
is the reality. And we'll end up with higher paid people, but just less of them, which will be a really interesting challenge, I think, for some retailers, because I think they completely potentially have to overhaul their recruitment and selection program in parallel with that. There's that whole thing about you recruit for the softer skills because you can always train people how to do a process. If you recruit people for the process part, then you tend to struggle with the brand ambassador skills, the living and breathing the purpose of the business, because that's just not in them. So it'd be interesting to see how all that moves.
Yeah, and there's some interesting things happening. The gig economy is there's a lot of talk about the gig economy and flexible working, and there are organisations. I think you had a podcast with Millie, that's right, from Caterpillar, and their model is really fascinating, which is brilliantly trained staff who you can pull in on short notice into your team to bolster your sales force at a key time when you're very, very busy. Things like that are really interesting. We've talked to Millie and we would love to get their employees available for our customers to pull into their schedules when they need them. And I think what we're likely to see is fewer headcount in each store. So you may well have a core of full-time or nearly full-time employees who are paid very well, who have flexible working conditions, and then retailers flexing up with services like that. Perhaps that certainly there's some interesting trends happening around things like that. But I think at the heart of it, if you're a retailer that's focusing on service, investing in your teams, investing in your staff, identifying people who are exhibiting great customer service behaviors that are driving performance, and making sure you're retaining them is going to be important. And retailers, if they don't have this data available to them, they're doing that on intuition. And the first thing we tell store managers when we launch our product with them and show them Storeforce for the first time is be open-minded. There are some things that you'll see which will validate your assumptions, But there'll be many things you'll see that will challenge them. So things that you thought, oh, well, this person wasn't very good at X. Well, if the data says different, be open-minded about that and then go and look at that through different eyes. Humans are very good at spotting patterns, but we're also have our own biases, and data really doesn't lie. When you look at data over quite a long period of time, it can point you in some quite interesting directions, and that's really at the heart of what we do. We don't think store managers should be spending a huge amount of time in the back office analyzing trends and looking at data. We should be presenting data to them that prompts them to make great decisions right now. And at the heart of what we do is giving insights to the stores and to the field managers and executives and so on, so they can have great quality conversations. But it's really about doing all of the things systems and computers can do very efficiently and very quickly, and taking that burden away from the store managers so they can make better decisions. And if you're doing that, if you're focusing on improving those skills of your team, your customers are going to recognize and feel that when they shop with you, because you're focusing then on the things that are going to improve their experience rather than the things that can be better automated or done by a system.
Amazing. So kind of in summary, I think what we both agree on, and tell me if I get it wrong, is tech plays a pivotal part. It's really important. The data helps make the decisions, but actually it's going to be moving forward people that make the biggest difference in terms of the data that's given to them to help them improve, to help performance improve, to think about sales outside of the bricks and mortar. They're going to be the key differentiator for a retailer in the new world.
Yeah, exactly. Focus on what you can control, and that's the customer experience. That's your team. That's building a great team, giving a great experience to every customer that walks in the store. Be very highly tuned to the KPIs that give you those insights.
It made me think of if a retailer would be brave enough to use kind of the Moneyball approach. So I don't know if you've seen the film, but it's based on the real
life. It's the baseball film, right?
Yeah, absolutely, with Brad Pitt. So yes. It's big in sport. Liverpool use it now. Brentford are really big on it, and they make all their acquisitions, the signings, through data. Yep. So again, it takes out the bias of, well, he's 35, he's washed up, he's a left back who's not been brilliant. But actually, when you look at the stats, he might have the best blocking across into the box rate, the best delivery from conversions or assists from set pieces. So it'd be interesting to see if that becomes more prevalent in terms of Moneyball in business, of data make some of the decisions, because it just takes the emotion out. Could be a bit blunt, I suspect, at times, but yeah, be interested if people make more of a jump into that world.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's kind of what we do in many ways is look at the KPIs and the numbers. And it's an interesting analogy, because baseball, there was a great resistance to that approach in baseball, wasn't there? There was everyone was saying this is a game that requires skill, and it's an art form, and it's nuanced, and people are so important in it. And actually that approach proved that data can add a whole new dimension to it that humans weren't very good at spotting. And the same is true in retail. The industry, if you look at it compared to almost any other industry, has kind of been lagging in adoption of technology, certainly in brick and mortar. E-com, if you go to anybody's e-com site, they know when you came, where you came from, how long you stayed, what you clicked on, the entire journey. In brick and mortar, that's not understood in the same way at all. And the expectation is that, store managers are great at understanding intuitively their customers in their area, and so we're going to leave it to them to decide. And actually, when you give them data in a very simple and intuitive way, it doesn't take anything away from their intuition. It enables their intuition to go and spend the time on improving the customer experience through coaching their staff. And that's the thing that makes the difference at the end of the day. So, yeah, it's an interesting analogy. And I think there's some common themes between baseball and retail. There's probably still an assumption out there with many retailers that having data is going to take something away. And in fact, I think the reverse is.
Brilliant. Listen, it's been a great chat, this one. Really enjoyed it. So final question from me is, what's the best bit of business advice you've ever been given?
I think the best bit of business advice I've been given is to listen and learn to others, listening to other people, learning from people who have more experience than you, who have insights, and just be a sponge, absorb everything.
Brilliant. Love that one. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure, Chris. So we'll
Thank you,
catch up
Simon.
soon.
Great to talk. Take care.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.